So this presentation and this exercise are designed to help you get it. Who's used Git before? That's good. You should be in this room. Who uses Git every day? Somewhere in between every day and never. I still haven't seen all the hands. That's an exclusive set, guys. I wouldn't say I use Git every day, but close enough for all intents and purposes. When I started using Git, I definitely did not. I was like, what's the point? I'm not working with anybody. I don't need to share this. I don't need to share that. Everyone knows what Git is, so I can skip the super basics. What we want to emphasize here, and what's going to set up Murray for a great presentation later, is kind of thinking about Git and GitHub in task-focused ways. Like, what does it help you do? Not what is it, not what are the functions, not what's this, what's that, but what does it help you do? Everyone knows that Git is not GitHub, right? Who's used Git and who's used GitHub? GitHub? Cool, excellent. And GitHub is not Git. So that's one idea that's really helpful to have. Git is a version control software. It runs on your computer. You either have it installed, you definitely have it installed. GitHub is a development platform. It's on the internet. There's no GitHub on your computer. Keeping those things separate and remembering what they do is really important to figuring out how you're going to use these tools. I just had a conversation with an economist who said, should I be using Git? I say, yes, you should be using Git. He goes, but it's going to put my information on the internet. I'm like, Git's not on the internet. GitHub is on the internet. You can use Git without using GitHub. You can use GitHub without using Git, but that seems silly. Everyone knows what they do as version control software. You revise your work a lot, particularly if it's code. You need it to keep working, and it's very easy to break code when you're trying something new. In fact, it's inevitable. Git allows you to manage versions in two ways, which I think are difficult to visualize just from being told what Git is, but it's something that I think Git Kraken helps a lot with. So that's why I've asked you to use the software. Has anyone used Git Kraken before? Does everyone get the pun? That was tepid at best. See, I have to take all the bad jokes. If no one else is going to laugh at them, I'll start laughing at my jokes, and that's, again, you don't want that. Please laugh. Git is a software that runs on your computer. It stores version history of your files in a way that's useful. You don't need to know the technical details. The complete history of your project is what is called the repository. You can view the repository in desktop client. This, yeah, it's just not very visible. Is that helpful at all? No. This is what Git Kraken looks like. It is also not Git, and it is also not GitHub. It helps you control those two things. It is a Git client. It's what we're going to primarily use to interact with the repositories. I refuse to use the command line for Git, except in absolute emergencies, and I generally don't like the GitHub desktop product because I don't think it shows you what you actually need to know. Git Kraken is the desktop client we'll be using to do today. It has a lot of really cool features for your own project management and for collaboration, and we're going to use both today to actually work with everyone in the room on a project, which is going to be fun. So a very simple repository looks like the one that's displayed right now in the client. It's called jclintb 2019 up there in that upper left-hand corner. Next to that is the file management button, and on the other side of that is the branching button. If you care about these things, you'll get the habit of kind of knowing where they are. That shaves a lot of time off and makes it feel more natural. What is in the repository is all of those objects that are shown there. It's a series of versions called commits, and that is the history of the project. That is all that's in a repository, and what we're going to do is figure out how to make that useful. GitHub, again, is not Git. This is a web browser. That's where GitHub is shown. You don't need any special software to do that. It is a project management website that you can use to manage your interaction with other people. I'm going to show you some very basic features here. I'm actually going to show you almost nothing. I'm just going to merge everything up kind of in the background. And later today, we're going to show you how to actually use GitHub to actively work on your projects. We found that to be one of the most useful project and team management softwares out there, and learning to use it has been just such a boon. So it's cool. That's later. it lets you post issues, replies, and tracks the whole process of your project. Git and GitHub together let you work on a project such as the SDG Atlas. This is what that repository looks like on GitHub. You can manage your workflow either completely privately and internally, or you can use it to expose your code and results to the broader world, whether that's for inputs from them, for giving research, resources, code, data to them. GitHub is also a platform that promotes discoverability of your work and has really good features for people who are looking for things to find your work if it happens to be what they want. Git also protects your files much better than most other software. I do not consider Dropbox, for example, to be a backup. I do consider Git to be a backup. One kind of nitpicky technical point, the stuff that are in the files is not the repository. So that's that same folder, right, jclindb 2019. That's not the repository, right? Those are the files that are in there. What we saw before are the commits, the version history. That is what's in the repository. Where is the repository? You really don't need to know this. It's an invisible folder in the same folder called .git, and it has a bunch of technical stuff in there. It's running all that in the background every time you do Git commands. You never need to look at it or manually edit it, ever. Everything is done through Git, and everything through Git is done through your Git client. So we're going to try to make this as simple as possible so that you don't have to think about 17,000 things about the structure of your computer. So how does it work? I want to very quickly review the idea of commits and branches. Everyone knows what a commit is? Good. Everyone knows what a branch is? No. Even if you think you know, you have no idea, and we're going to fix that now. Because it's important to have, your own definitions of what they are. The technical definitions are useless. Git documentation is useless. Has anyone ever opened the Git documentation? I'm sorry, you probably do that a lot. But it's terrible, right? Yeah, okay. So what does Git do? Git does two things. First, Git creates commits. A commit is the things that are the content of the repository that's displayed here in the client. It is a snapshot of that entire working directory where the files live at a certain point in time, and commits have two characteristics. They have names and they have timestamps. I'm not showing the timestamps here for some reason. Oh, there's some at the top. So each one of these commits has a name and a timestamp. You have to tell Git when to create new commits, unlike other softwares. This is the biggest difference from whenever you're using now, whether you have a system backup like a Time Machine or Backblaze, or whether you have a file thing like Dropbox. Those things are all automatic and in the background. Git is manual, and that's one of the hardest things to get used to, but it's totally worth figuring out how to do that. What do commits do? They name your past versions. Git is always watching, which is creepy, but okay. But it only stores the changes as these versions when you tell it to. That is what making a commit is doing. You name them, and you should name them well, because you're going to need to look through quite a few, and it's super useful to see the way in which you did things so that you can get back to the things that you want when you need them. Git versus Dropbox is a summary here. It's different from the way Dropbox works and far superior for working with code for reasons that are described in this blog post. I don't think I put that slide in here. I did not. Git creates branches. Everyone has seen version histories before. If you've used Dropbox, if you've gone to the version history page, you've seen past versions. So that's a familiar concept as to what those are. The good part about Git is naming them and ordering them in a sensible fashion, which Dropbox does not do. But what Git does that no other software really does is create branches. And this is the killer feature of Git. So you're familiar with thinking about moving through version histories from the present to the past in a kind of like, I would say, top to bottom way or forward backward way. Branches use the same object, a commit, to create what I think of as moving horizontally through versions. So you can actually have either at any time now or in the past 2 directions of versionality to move through in Git, and that's what makes it an incredible project management tool, even if you are the only one using it on your computer without an internet connection. It lets you create this kind of space of versions that are both temporal and concurrent, and you can move between them and keep your work organized and recoverable in a really useful way if you set these things up right. Now, the hard part is no one tells you how to do that. Git doesn't tell you how to do that. Your boss doesn't tell you how to do that. Most technical trainings don't tell you how to do that. So what we're going to do today is figure out how to organize ourselves in this way. Dropbox. Right. So Dropbox, by contrast, does these things in unorganized ways. It saves your version history every time you save the file with no indication of what was going on at that time. And you save your work all the time, so you get lots of versions, and it's pretty useless to navigate. In terms of contemporaneous management, anyone who has not ever had a conflicted copy in Dropbox is clearly not doing enough work. So you can see that the contemporaneous management of Dropbox is essentially non-existent, and the ability to have multiple living versions of these files at the same time is what makes the branching model the killer feature. So in Git, it can get complicated. The same way if you stored all your files on your desktop, you would not be working effectively. If you just go ahead and smash out commits and you're like, I'm using GitHub, you are not using Git effectively, right? And it's very easy to make a mess. What we need to do, especially when working as a team, is get organized. We need to have something that not only allows ourselves to know what we have to do with a given commit and branch, but to let other people on our team know where those things are going to be. So just the same way that we have a folder structure that everyone is aware of on a team and says, okay, I have a new document, where does it go? Oh, you know, it's in this one because you have agreed on a folder structure beforehand. We use what's called Git flow, or any Git workflow, but this is the one I'm going to teach you, to keep our branches and commits organized. And if we say at the beginning of a project, I'm using Git flow, we're using Git flow, it's a system that's developed out so that people actually know where they should put stuff, and you don't have to have a long meeting saying, oh, if I do this, what branch should I put it on? Should I make a commit at this point? When do I merge it back? Keeping these things organized makes everyone's life easier, and then it's very easy to also see what people's progress is and to feel naturally when you should make these different actions. And that makes it a lot easier. The core structure of the Git flow workflow in terms of organizing branches is 3 things. You have a master branch, which is all the way on that side because I didn't want to flip the images because it would reverse all the text. All the way on the far side, the blue commits, the objects are commits. The blue commits are the master branch. The characteristics of the master branch are that this is your deployment product. What is on the master branch is always ready to run and essentially publishable if that's part of your output process. No commit gets put onto the master branch unless you can hit run and all the code works no matter whose computer you're sitting at. What happens so how do we actually move forward from development release to development release? Obviously, moving forward from development release to development release is the old non-Git workflow. You have to say, like, okay, we're ready to break the product and put it back together before anyone notices so that it can keep working the next time someone tries to run it. Instead, what we do is we have a development branch. That's the yellow commits there, still on the far pair. That has a series of incremental changes, which should be good changes in the sense that they're like runnable, but it's not what you want to push out to the world yet. It's like we've made a feature that's working, put it in the development branch for the next release, but it's not the next version of the product yet. We've revised one table, we've updated some code, we've optimized this, we've made this figure prettier, put it in the development branch until we have the next product. And so you can see that the development branch can actually get pretty busy, but these are sequential improvements to the product that eventually become a new production release, as in another master branch commit. But you still don't do any work on the development branch. It just stores your work. What you finally do, and this is where almost all the work will happen, is on these little pink commits closest to me. These are called feature branches, and they have feature commits. And they get made and killed all the time. Any change by any person gets done on their own feature branches, and when it's done, you either let it die, you say that didn't work, or you merge it back into the develop branch, and that's where the changes actually come from. So this is why it's organized, because everyone knows on which branch they should be doing their work, and everyone knows when that branch is ready to be merged back into the main product. Does that make sense? All right, I just talked really fast for 20 minutes, so at least one question before we move to the next slide. Yes?
So the feature branches, so that would be on this web page. That specific.
Sure.
So that every single.
Yeah, and so it can be as specific or as broad depending on the work that you do. So, for example, something that I would use, I write papers. So my feature branches would be something like integrate the comments from the referee's suggested revisions. That would be a feature for me. For someone else, it could be, just redo figure 1 because I wanted to change it and I don't want to bother anyone else while I'm doing it. So it's basically a task or a deliverable that's assigned to one person would be the content of a feature branch. So you would typically name them your name and what you're doing, however large or small that task is. Does that make sense?
Sure. And then there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. So when everyone runs your version, you say, hey, I've made these changes. Everyone can look at it, say, actually, that's not done yet, or that's great. Bring it into the development branch of the project. Exactly.
That's essentially part that you edited. Paragraph 2, I've changed it, I've made these comments. Paragraph 2 is development, and there's a new yellow dot. Paragraph 2 is.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. And what GitHub will do is let you get like line by line feedback on just that task, which is why we do the feature branches so specifically. Because when you say, okay, I want to merge this into develop, if it's like I changed paragraph 2 and I updated the figure and I fixed the process, that's a lot of stuff for other people to look at, as opposed to having them like really be able to respond to singular changes. This is the hard part. I mean, this is the entire content. If you can, memorize, and memorizing it doesn't help. If you can do this, you've learned the entire content of the presentation. The rest of it is basically explaining this in a little more detail and then doing it. That's it. This is the mental content of the entire morning session for me, because I think it's actually a lot. Yes.
Do you recommend to use this structure or if you work independently?
I use it when I work independently also because I find it easier to organize my work that way. The really nice thing about the feature branches if you're working alone is that you end up with a lot of these concurrent versions, and you always have your deployment product ready. So it's very easy to abandon work or start new work without breaking your code. And that's just really common, especially with statistical software, to screw stuff up. Yeah. Use the mic, please. Sorry, I should have said that earlier.
I haven't used it in a while, but when I did, I remember I'd have a program that created tables and charts. And when I made edits to that program, I had to add it somewhere first before I committed it.
Yes, yep.
Okay. Where does that fit on each of those branches? So if I made an edit, that's all on the featured branch, and then when I added it, does it go to the development branch?
So when the commits are on the feature branches, the adding and staging is part of making a commit.
Okay.
So you'll just see that process again, and I'm mostly going to brush over it. It's mainly there so you can decide what goes into each commit, but at this point, we're not going to be using that tool for finer control because that's not what you need to do right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about. So, cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about these things, about these branches in detail, just so we know what this kind of means in terms of permissions and social roles. The two branches, the master and the develop, are the team branches. All the feature ones are individual. So you only do work on your individual branch. No one does work on the team branches. So they are protected, which means no one can do anything to them, except request a merge and have it approved by the team, whichever process you guys have chosen to review and approve work. That may be one person who says this works or this doesn't work, or it may be a process where everyone gives feedback and says, yeah, we like that. Let's go with that. those two branches, the develop and the master, are what's called protected. That's something you set up on GitHub. I'm not going to go through it now, but that'll be how it works so that everything goes through a feature branch and gets requested back onto the develop. Finally, nobody can move develop into master except whoever's the administrator. They can say, okay, this is the final version and prepare a release. Also not going to go into that today because that's not something that team members would typically be doing during the work production process. But we'll show you what it looks like. Benefits of Git Flow. Who here is an academic researcher? A data scientist? A writer? Are the rest of you unemployed? What do we do? Analyst? All right. Okay. So depending on the software you're using, like the exact work case will obviously be different. Some people will be using statistical software. Some people will be using something like LaTeX. Some people, you can honestly just write reports in here almost in plain text, which I've even started doing. What you can't do Word documents, can't do PowerPoints, can't do Excel spreadsheets. Yes, you can. You can't. You can do Jupyter notebooks, but it's kind of funky, isn't it?
A lot of days.
Yeah, it's not really what you... I think it works, though.
Okay.
You'll have to check, yeah, because in the end they're stored as plain text and they're edited in the funky browser. I think it'll work. It may not be useful, though. So, why would we do this? One is that you have a boss, and your boss has a boss. Sometimes it's your boss's boss. One of those people who has no idea what you're doing is going to ask you a question like, where are we? And if you're working on stuff, you're not going to have a good answer for that. That's the master branch. The boss says, what do we have? And you show them the last commit on the master branch. It's going to work because we never put anything on the master branch that doesn't work. And it's going to look good because it may not look good yet, but it's going to look better than what's on the other branches because it's not a work in progress, right? It's not being hacked on right now where it's like, okay, but you see how these sections are going to... No, the master branch is done work. It's V1.0, and if you're doing revisions, it's going to be V1.1, but it's ready. Your boss's boss can also say, what if you do this? Who's done that in Stata or Word and then ended up with a version that was like kind of separate but kind of the same, or stopped working because you put in some new code and then it like choked? It's like, oh wait, but I had to do that first. You can create a feature branch at any time from anywhere, past, present, or you can't go to the future yet, past or present, and say, let's try, without damaging your work or anyone else's work. And you know how those people are, that they ask you, one, stuff they've already seen. So what you can do with a feature branch is just leave it living there on the bottom, and when they come back to you 2 weeks later and say, hey, what happened when we tried that thing last week? You can just open it up again and show them again, and it didn't take you any effort because this is what Git does. And you can always look back and see how things were at different times. So when someone comes to you and says, hey, what about that thing we tried 2 weeks ago? It's still there. And you can still say, oh, this is why we decided not to include it. In general, for me, my pitch to everyone is that I am lazy, and that's why I'm a good programmer. I don't like doing work. I certainly don't like doing the same work again. So I try to think of these things in terms of what real tasks do they let me accomplish, and these are the types of things I like to think about. Is like when your boss comes, you don't have to start that cold sweat, you know? Git Flow. Why am I teaching you Git Flow? I'm teaching you Git Flow because other people use Git Flow. It's not necessarily the best idea or whatever. I think it's pretty good. But it's so popular that it has defaults built into a lot of software, including GitKraken. I'm going to show you how to use that feature here. In fact, that exact structure, and you can see there's a couple other things I didn't tell you about, but it's all built in because so many people use it. The benefit of using something that everyone else uses is even if it's garbage, you can show up anywhere and save all that startup time by saying, okay, we're using Git Flow. I know what to do. You don't need the onboarding of how does our development process work because you know how to do it. Same thing with the folder structures. We've spent a lot, at Dime, for example, we spent a lot of time developing just standardized folder structures across different projects so that RAs can hop from project to project, PIs can manage multiple projects, and everyone can be on the same page about how do we do our work. And I think it saved us a lot of time in training new people who come on, and it saved a lot of people a lot of frustration from stuff getting lost or just wasting time making new folders and then finding them later. Great, I need to give you edit access to the demo repo. Yes, let's do that. The way to do that is to already have it open. I just need everyone to line up here and type in their Git username here because I'm not typing them in as you tell me. Oh, no. I knew I'd get locked out. All right, that's only going to happen one time. In the meantime, everyone go to github.com/bbdaniels/gitflow-demo with dashes, not the settings part, and clone the repo. If anyone is out there who can kindly help people do that while I get myself into my own account, do that. Just take a minute, take a breath, and clone the gitflow demo repo. There's more instruction on the next page, but like I said, I'm locked out of my account. So you can watch me type all my passwords. Now. By the way, if everyone doesn't have a password manager or two-factor authentication, you should do that. Their data is really valuable, and hackers are everywhere. They'll just mess with your stuff for fun. Come on, what's happening here? If your data is useless, what are you doing? If it's useless to other people, how would you like it to just be scrambled? Like, people just lock your stuff because they know it's useful to you and try to ransom you. It's terrifying. So this is LastPass. It's a password manager, and it holds all your encryption keys, which you should use if you're collecting original survey data. This is Google Authenticator. So once I've entered my password, it gives you just like the bank token, obviously, but you can protect all your personal stuff with it. So here's my key. Type that in. Authenticate that. No, what? Invalid. I had to type something wrong. Back. Oh, see, it let me in. How did it let me in with invalid password? Alright. So then, since I don't know my own GitHub password, because it's long and complicated, I get this. I show you all my password. Copy it. Confirm it. If I hadn't logged into this, that would also ask me for a two-factor, but it's not that bad. Again, once you get used to the flow of it, it's super useful, and I think that's the truth with most of these technical tools, is that if you figure out how to use it, so how long did that take? That took 1 minute for me to go through two-factor protected things, and I don't have any collaborators. That's great. So if you would kindly form a single file line here and type in your GitHub username, so please know what it is, and that will add you as a collaborator to this repo so that we can work as a team. You have 2 minutes. You got to stick to the schedule on this. We have another hour that should be just on time. Did it? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Yep. And so when you do it, you'll receive an email invitation. Accept that, obviously.
The username, right?
Yep. Why does it kick me back a page every time? All right, keep it moving. Yeah. Just right up. Yep. I hate Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work. No, do you have the username only? If that was your email,
I'm not 100% sure, but it's.
do you want to? You can always check, but just it should just be a short username. Perfect. Yeah, GitHub's a bit weird with identity management, but what are you gonna do? Oh, and by the way, if anyone has done this, I don't recommend that people use their work email for this. GitHub does expect you to have a single global identity, and even if you join a work project, you would still use your private one. On the flip side, if you lose access to your work email, you would be potentially locked out. I think I have both. I think I have my work email as a backup email for this, but check those settings, and if you can, I would recommend using your personal email for your GitHub identity. Also, yeah, the handle thing is hilarious. I've seen some really funny ones. I don't know if that's an option to change later, but like, don't pick anything embarrassing. Nope.
That was my Twitter handle.
Someone's like, that was my StarCraft handle. All right, I got one giggle. Haven't you done this before?
Yeah.
Okay, that's everybody? Great. Collaborators. I am waiting for email confirmations from a couple of people. So go ahead and say yes on that email if you've received it. And that should do it. Okay, let's go back to reality. You can't have the green flag and the red flag up. Just put up the green flag when you've got the thing in. Right, the red flag is I need help. And the first step is, PowerPoint. Clone the Git flow demo repo locally. So in GitKraken, I have the instructions. Okay, so go to the repository on the internet, and the front page of it, this is what you should see. This is the wrong repo. Great screenshot. It's Git flow demo this time. GitHub.com/pbdano/Git flow demo with dashes for the spaces. GitHub's pretty good about URL management, so it's usually easy to figure out what the URL for something will be if you know the name. That's just nice. On the front page, there's a green button which is clone or download. You're going to want to... Downloading the repository will give you the current master copy of all the files. You don't want to do that because you want now to have access to the edit history, right? You're collaborating on this project. You want to clone it, which means you'll get both the files and the repository, which is the complete history of the files, right? And that's the important part. So go ahead, click on that green button. What you're going to do is copy the URL using the little tiny copy button. None of these are labeled for some reason, so I put big red arrows. The little tiny copy button, or manually copy that URL. Once you get super used to it, you'll probably be able to guess what the URL is. It's github.com/pbdano/gitflowdemo.git, I believe. Paste it, go to your Git client, which is GitKraken, and in here, up at the corner, I've helpfully numbered the arrows, you use the repository management menu. You are cloning a repo. Where to clone to is a good first question. That should be, I have a folder called GitHub in my root directory. In Mac, that'll be something that's just like users/your name. I have a folder there called GitHub that has all of my GitHub stuff in there. If you're on Windows, it'll be something like
users, C users, your name. I think in there you can put your GitHub folder. That's what I would do. I would put it like next to, basically what I'm saying is next to your Dropbox. Wherever your top level Dropbox lives, that's where I like to have GitHub, and I like to treat it as something of the equal power. Do not put it inside Dropbox. If you think Dropbox is your home directory, it is not. It is definitely not your Git directory, because Dropbox's syncing will interfere with the way that GitHub alters files. It'll go bananas, and you don't want that to happen. Okay. Then you put it in, it'll automatically name it. Each of your things will have a unique name. Naming them descriptively is really good. I don't think there's a length limit on the names. I think in the end, the only bound is if your computer has a built-in path limit, which I think Windows does, and other ones should not. It'll automatically give you the name of that new folder. Click clone the repo, and you should get something. You should get something. I didn't take a picture of the thing you should get. But let me know when everyone has cloned that repo in GitKraken. I'm looking for green stickies. So it should pop up. It shouldn't be very informative. Ask your neighbors for help, or put up the red sticky if you need help. Anybody else needs a hand? Click open now when it prompts you at the very top of the screen after you do that. You should get little pictures of me, which is what everyone wants on their computer. Okay, go on. No, red. Okay, I'm going to move forward. In preferences is in the file menu on Windows, and it's in the GitKraken menu on Mac at the very top of your screen typically. There'll be your profile stuff, authentication stuff, which you may need if you put security controls on your GitHub, blah, blah, blah. Some preferences about if you want the dark screen or the white screen. And at the bottom, repo-specific preferences for, this is the GitFlow demo repo, and you turn on GitFlow. Again, the part that's important to emphasize here is that this isn't software. I have it turned on, but this is basically a guide that's built into GitKraken to help you do GitFlow, to help you work with that workflow. If you turn this on, it doesn't do anything to the repo. It doesn't show up to other people. It's just a guide to help you out that's built into the software. And like I said, it's built in because lots of people do this. So everyone's able to do that. I'm still mostly seeing green, so I'm going to keep going. Check out develop. When you check out a branch, this is the cool part. There's a develop branch, right? Yeah. So at the top, you'll see
the repository management button, the name of the repository, what you are looking at right now in the Git client, and next to that, the branch you're on. By default, it'll load master because it's the production branch. If you drop down that menu, you'll see these two options. You might see three if you downloaded the BBD branch. Switch to develop, and nothing should change. You should be on the most recent commit. That should be fine. Okay. So when you check out a branch, everything on your computer is instantly updated to what that branch looks like. I can show you a bit of that in a sec. And the most important thing is to just get a sense of what these navigators do. They put you on different branches, and then in your main, in the repository itself, it'll show you where you are. Everyone's got develop checked out. So we're going to create a feature branch. Gitflow will now do that for you. It has that little pop-out tab. This is the hardest thing to see. I think these buttons are terribly indicated in this software. It's the one thing I don't like, and I'm probably going to go complain. Pop out that little Gitflow tab. It should have highlighted the development master branch, and it'll give you this menu, start a new feature, and it should say in there like from the latest develop or something like that. Do that, and name it your name or your initials. So you might see on there a branch called BBD add do file or something like that, a branch that already exists. You're going to add one with your name. Develop. So from the develop branch, that's wrong, that's a good catch. From the develop branch, create this new branch, a new feature branch with your initials, and then something like add file, new file, whatever it is. What you're going to be doing. What you're going to be doing is adding a new file.
It gives you two options: latest develop and current branch.
Latest develop. Always latest develop unless you're doing something else. So it already knows. So actually, maybe this isn't wrong, because if you click in and it says latest develop, it'll automatically take you to develop branch to make that branch. That's a great find. It'll let you do whatever you want. The point is knowing what to do so that other people know what you're doing and you know what you're doing. Yes, did we start a new feature branch? Yeah, start feature. What did I call this one? BBD new file. Use dashes for the spaces. That's just standard. That'll indicate whose it is and what you're doing. Because in this model, these things are that specific. How much more do I have here? Not that much. So everyone now has, I skipped a lot of this to get this done in an hour. We'll be done quickly, but I can take a lot of questions. All right, so what happened? On your computer, nothing. Open up the actual file folder where the files are stored, the working directory for this repository. So you have two things now at this time, right? You have the repository open in the Git client, and you have the working directory with the actual files open in like your regular file browser, either Finder or File Explorer or whatever they call it now. So you see those two things separately, and you see that they are different things, right? The repository is the history and branch structure of that working directory, and the working directory is the literal current version of the files, and that's going to change. So on that branch, go to the working directory, add some kind of file, some kind of text file. I'm clearly bringing it from somewhere else. You can go ahead in there and say create new file, create a do file, create a text file. It doesn't have to have much for contents. Write your name in it, I guess, so we can do that. The only point is you just want to add some kind of text file to that directory. Is there anything in there now? There's nothing in there now besides the README, is there? Or did I add something? I don't think there's anything in there. Oh yeah, and name that file also with your name, so that we don't have multiple people with the same file names, because that we don't want to go there yet. So the same thing, call it your initials and then file, or and we do the same thing for file names. While I'm on that, it's best to have single word strings using dashes and underscores as necessary. Spaces in file names break things. apostrophes in file names will get you thrown out of the office. I never want to see bend space do file. Oh man. I never want to see temp. I never want to see v2. That's what this is for. There's a great presentation called Naming Things by Jenny Bryan on the internet, which will help you name things. And it's the same kind of thing. Once you start doing it, you're just like, wait, this makes sense. And then you stop losing things. As you can see, I have tons of folders, although maybe I'm not doing that much work as I should. And they're all named like that. The capital letters are an exception, which somebody else created, and I resent. On some, and the reason is it will break, because some operating systems will interpret the capital letters. Some will decapital. The best way to do it is to create it on a Windows, pass it to a Mac, which will typically decapitalize it and pass it back. Then on a Linux, where the file paths are actually case sensitive, the same software will break, even if you test it out on both the Windows and the Mac. And most production servers are Linux. It's a great way to break your software. And that's true for any software, whether it's Stata or like high-tech web production stuff. It's absolutely nuts. Lowercase letters, please. No spaces, please. And descriptive file names, you know what they are. Everyone's got a file? Yes. Any text file, not a Word file, a text file. If you don't know what a text file is, yes. That's it. You're just generating the folder, and that's it. We're really doing the basic stuff here. What's going on? Actual working directory. File, a new text file using text file. You can create a new file using text edit, but text edit will generally create an RTF file by default, which is Stata. We asked you to get Atom, which I can help with later. That's the only way I actually know how to do this. What do you usually create files in? How close are you? Am I seeing green stickies for having a text file added to the folder? So, okay, so I got a good question right now. In Git Kraken, you have several places, and they. Can you see? This thing is useless. How do I show you stuff? Nope, that goes forward. All right, here's a pen. What the? All right. So in Git Kraken, you have several what look like places, local and remote, right? So the local version, the question I got was, is this mine? The answer is yes and no. It is yours in the sense that this is the copy of the files that is living on your device, but it is not yours because it is not your branch. What it's telling you is that you have a copy of the master branch on your machine, and there's a copy of the master branch on the remote place, which has that little GitHub logo because it's also on GitHub. Those two can be in different places. Now, actually, we're gonna get things. We're never gonna have them out of sync in this tutorial, but when you do local work, if you're working through GitHub, yes, you need to sync it with GitHub via pushing it there. And we'll do that here just now, actually. So does everyone have a text file in this thing? Are you still stuck on the authentication? Or you got it? You've got your red flag up. Do you need something?
Yeah, just move on.
Okay. So what Git does, and I think this was the question from earlier, is it shows you when you have a work in progress. So you should have something that looks like this with a little empty circle now at the top of your timeline. And it says WIP, it's got nothing in there, it's kind of weird looking. Click on that so that you see this work in progress sidebar. So it shows you don't have a commit yet because it's not doing that automatically, remember. It's letting you do as much work as you want, which is saved on your local machine. And then in order to save those into a commit, you have to first stage them, which means add them to the staging area. I think this is what you're talking about with adding stuff before. The reason why you have to do this is because you maybe screw up and you don't actually want to stage all of the stuff that you've done. You've created some like temp files or other garbage and you don't want to put that into the version history. You just want to commit your code changes. You can selectively change by change, file by file, control stuff at the staging area. I almost never do unless I really mess something up. So I typically just dump all the stuff into staging. What you have to do to make a commit, so you have to do that with the stage all changes button, again, the numbers. You have to give it a name, which is what the commit message is, the part that's called summary there, and it's overwriting, that's the same information field as the very top, the WIP, work in progress. You can type the name of your commit there. Commit names should also be nice. They should start with a capital letter. They should be short, sentence-y fragments, and they should not end in a period. And they should be written in the present tense. What they do is they are a descriptor of what the commit does. Again, in the present tense, not did, because these things all have infinite longevity. They always will do that thing. So, for example, this one you'd put add my file dot whatever. Just describe what you did concisely and straightforwardly. Again, start with a capital letter, short sentence, no period, present tense. Easy to remember. And you just describe what you did. I added my file.do or whatever. Stage those changes, name them in the summary, which is also the name. It's one of those that doesn't have like a real title, so it's not like officializable. In the description, there is a description field. You can write longer notes in there. People can find them if they want to. You may or may not do that. It's an extra step, and depending on how much you're doing it or not, you may or may not need to. If it's complicated, you should put stuff in there. If not, that can be left blank. The name field never can. All commits need informative names. Then, press that big green commit button at the bottom of the work in progress panel. The outline bubble will fill in. It should be a picture of you this time if you added a picture, or your initials, or something to that effect, since it'll show who made the commit. Do we have commits? Anybody not have a commit? One person doesn't have a commit? Okay. The final thing you need to do is at the very top, there's a button that's called push. Push is now no longer a local operation. What pushing is going to do is take that branch and that commit and synchronize it with the GitHub repo that you're editor on. So go ahead and push. It should give you a little pop-up saying what branch on remote should this sync with. It should suggest the same name by default. You should be able to just press OK, unless somebody didn't follow instructions and has the same branch name as you, which is why we name our branches with our names and what we're doing. So that there's very unlikely that another BBD is going to be adding a new file, right? So that's why we do that, so that we don't clutter up the remote. So everybody do that. I want to see those branches appearing on GitHub. This is the best part about GitHub, is just someone's watching you, so you can't be lazy. Oh, come on. Of course it doesn't work on Internet Explorer. Fucking modern browsers. I'm definitely going to get kicked out of my thing again, so you have more time while I re-crack my password. Alright, I see 1, 2. Alright, so this one's close. Who's ACB? Great. We need a name and a purpose for our branches. But you don't have to change anything now. Everyone makes mistakes, and pointing them out is how we learn. Right? Something like that. Muchenzu. Lowercase letters. And your initials will be fine. Unless there's another MZ, obviously MZ2 or whatever you guys decide. That's great. Christoph Rettel. Same thing. No purpose. No purpose, Christoph. JG test. A dash would be good to separate your name from your thing. Mickey is good. R. Harrison. Again, your initials are just fine unless you've decided as a team. This could be your naming scheme for your team. That'd be cool too. We prefer dashes to underscores for reasons.
It'd be hard to unlearn.
Huh?
It's going to be hard to unlearn.
It is hard to unlearn. Yeah, no, it's a complete... and for reasons. Like, it's good reasons. Particularly, underscores will break everything in LaTeX because they send it into subscript mode and auto-calling the math processor. Man, all my shit's broken. You have to actually escape them with a backslash to include them in stuff. It's horrible. Yeah, dashes. Underscores are okay in file names to do like 01 underscore the stuff, but I typically try to avoid them now. Yeah, it takes some learning, some relearning, especially. Who am I missing? Who's not on this list? I know there's people not on this list because this isn't everyone in the room. All right, why aren't we on this list? Okay. Why aren't we on this list?
Actually, not sure.
You shouldn't be able to push anything to the development branch. Let me have a look.
Maybe I didn't, but I should retain the branches.
So what happened here is that the changes were made on the existing develop branch. So you've moved that forward. that's fine. It's actually the best part about Git is that things are easy to fix. You can switch back to the master branch, get rid of the develop branch entirely, and go back to your branch, and then make the change on your branch.
Okay.
So when to delete the develop branch, that's deleting your develop branch, the one that you create on your local.
Yeah, you can delete any branch locally, so you can delete master locally if you care to. That's fine. You can delete branches because branches are not commits. Branches only give you access to a specific commit. You can't delete commits. You can, I will not tell you how. Never delete commits because that's the actual history. Branches are easy to delete. They're not information. They're just pointers to information. So you can create and delete as many as you want on your local machine. Since as a collaborator, you can push any of those to GitHub that you want because you have that, except I haven't allowed you to push the develop or the master branches. So you will not be allowed to do that from in the client. That's one reason I like Git Kraken more than GitHub Desktop also, is because GitHub Desktop really insists that your local repository be an exact copy of what's on GitHub, and Git Kraken lets you diverge them. It's a little more work to learn, but that's the right way to think of it. Does that help?
Thank you.
Anybody else needs anything?
You've already done it.
No.
Already made it, so.
This is it. So here's another good one. This is, the commit is named what the branch should be, but it's committed to the local master. What you want to do is go back to that feature branch. So by checking out up here. So check out your thing, add the file here. And the best part about Git is if you get messed up, because there's a remote copy that you're not allowed to edit the core of, you can always delete everything on your computer, right? You can just go to that working directory, delete the entire thing, and reclone it. And everything will be there except what you were just working on. So if you mess up and stuff is screwed up, delete everything, reclone, and start again. Your team's work will be there. The core work will be there. You might lose a little bit, but it's better than losing everything. Last one, some people will get something called DS Store in their file list. DS Store is a system file that Mac OS uses to manage. I think it tells you how to display the contents of the folder, if they're alphabetized or not. It's dumb stuff. Typically, you'll have a git ignore file, which tells Git to ignore certain types of files. DS Store will almost always be in it, and then it'll stop bothering you.
These are weird file paths. I'm not sure. That's really weird. I haven't seen this before. I'm sorry. Are we green? I think we're green.
Let me refresh this list. Nope. Print. Why is that an option? Okay. Yeah, that's enough. All right. One thing that people should now notice on their Git client is that there's a lot more stuff there. Can everyone see lots of stuff? Is it spaghetti? Does it mean anything to anybody? At this point, you might be able to answer that question. You don't see spaghetti. I unfortunately don't have this stuff installed because it's a loaner laptop. Can
Can I steal someone's laptop with an HDMI connection? To close this person? Yeah, I think you have. No? Let's try it. Hot swap. Is that not the HDMI? That is the HDMI connection. Okay. Come on. Oh, there we go. Like something like this. One thing that you should do is, this is another one of those hidden buttons that they think is really obvious that isn't. The rainbow panel is a slider, and it shows you the structure of the repository. So you can slide that out and collapse it because you may just not have a lot of room. But this shows you what's going on. Isn't it beautiful? What you can do now is super, super cool. Go to someone else's branch on the remote, right-click on it, and check it out locally, and see what that does. I'm not doing it. You guys do it. So, for example, I'm going to take the one that I know. It's mine. I'm going to check out BBD new file. So now I move to the BBD new file. It says add the new do file. If I now look at the repository, the contents of the repository in the working directory, they change. Specifically, they change to what it looked like at that state when I did it. If I go back now and check out the CR add file one, the working directory instantly updates to what Christoph, right? To what Christoph added. This is the same folder. In fact, I believe you can watch it do it if you're really feeling like fun. BBD new file. Done. Check out master. Gone. What Git lets you do, what a branch lets you do, is move to the state of the commit that it points to. And you can go anywhere. You can look at what your collaborators are doing anytime as long as they've synced it to GitHub. And that's the killer feature for contemporaneous versions. Yours, other people's, you can even have contemporaneous versions that are quote-unquote in the past, because that's your previous release. It is a branch. It is a commit. You can go to it, and you can go back in time. You can salvage work from previous stuff. You can pull this in from that and this in from that are kind of contemporaneous. You can go anywhere, and that's what we're going to start doing. Now, what I'm going to do really quickly is ask everybody to go back to GitHub. And when you go on GitHub, it should see that you have recently... Now I have to refresh the page. Where's everything? I'm not signed in. So go to GitHub. It should ask you... it should tell you you've recently pushed a branch and whether you want to make a pull request. Does anyone not have that? Stupid. Bad. Wow, it really doesn't work on Internet Explorer. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I can do it. So if you get into it, you are going to get a page like this. Like if you create you should be able to go to create pull request. So go pull requests, new pull request. It should give you suggestions. You should find your own branch from compare, and the base you should set to develop, because you want to ask that I move your changes into the develop branch. Just do a bunch of those. It'll ask you something like, oh wait, I should do my own one, obviously, because I'm not going to steal someone else's thing. I can't, because it's really being mean to me, and it doesn't work on Internet Explorer. Find your own one, put it to develop, create the pull request. Yep, develop. I can't. No, don't do it in Internet Explorer. So what you'll notice is that it shows you the changes. It shows you what was added. Am I getting pull requests?
Anybody? There's one. There's two. There's three. Perfect. I'm going to approve these. Can I mass approve them? Probably not. Can I even approve them? That is going to be... so since it's protected, it requires review. I'm an administrator. I'm going to allow it. It's seriously not going to work. Anyway. No. All right, wait. Should I log in? Should I log in again on a different browser? Ooh, my personal computer. I'm trying to show you. Give me 1 second to see if I can turn anything on and make it work. Huh? Yeah, but I'm not logged in, so I have to go through 6 passwords. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? Where's Christoph? There he is. What? Oh man, nothing works. I can't even make you an administrator. Can I do it on my phone? We're really going down to it here. Repositories. Git flow demo. Pull requests. Alright. I think I can do it on my phone. 173633. Alright, so I've merged. God damn it. Done this before. Okay. Does anyone know where the review button is? This is ridiculous. Don't know. Wow, it specifically says I can't merge on a phone a specific lock. Let's give it one more. I will get in. And in case anybody had questions about the security, it's reasonably secure. Done. All right, I just removed the branch protection. Okay, I'm starting to merge pull requests from my phone. What I'm doing is I'm confirming, it's the real tiny, I'm making merges, and then what I'm doing is I'm deleting the branches. Once you merge stuff, branches have information when they're fresh like this, so deleting them now is not cool. Someone definitely tried to merge into master, and that one got blocked. So remember, check that you. So again, the workflow is getting the habit of what is the thing to do. If you merge into master, it's not going to get approved. Thankfully, you can go back and edit that pull request, and you can change it to go into develop. I have another. This one you can actually. For the names of pull requests, these don't have to be single words. They can be like sentences, like the commit names, because these will actually be new commits. So add my Python file. Same thing. You want it to be like a capital letter, like kind of nice, because people are going to see this stuff. Okay, so now you should start seeing stuff happening in the repository locally. If you go back there, you're going to want to switch back to the develop branch, and stuff should be changing. The structure of that tree should be changing. How's it looking over here?
Okay, so what's happening as we work? The spaghetti is changing, exactly. What am I doing? I'm merging, as the administrator, I'm merging pull requests, which lets me add the contents of your files to develop. What I'm going to do now on this computer is I'm on develop, but I'm not here. That's origin. I am on here, my local copy of develop. I'm going to pull it, which means update to the remote state. Now my local computer's develop branch is here, and what's in that file? Everybody's work. So merging it together takes your changes and combines them across time, and you can see exactly how it's been done as a group on the Git client and GitHub. I can go continue merging these together. I can go to one and say, wait, there's problems, make some more updates, or I can do basically any combination of these things. And I can get to any of these locations very easily. So you see why this is on the develop branch is because this gets pretty busy. And I may want everybody's changes before I move it into the next version of the master branch, which is, again, a request from the develop into the master. They say, okay, that's good work, everybody. We have a new version. And that's it. So I have 10 minutes for questions. I think there's nothing else that I want to show you. They continue abusing the hardware. If you have questions, just go ahead and use the mic. Yeah, that's it. So,
Get to the folder that had all the consolidated files.
So go to the Git client, check out the develop branch by using the branch switcher at the top. Pull develop from the GitHub origin source where I've done all the merging.
So that's the develop of your face.
So check out develop, and you'll be checking out your local copy, in fact. What you want to do then by pulling it is make the local copy match the develop with my face because it's my repo. So I'm BB Daniels on GitHub is what's being called the remote right now. And there's a bunch of stuff on there that you don't have locally, and that's what I mean about managing what's where and whether or not you typically want them to be in sync, but you may not want everybody's stuff. But it's really cool that it shows you everybody's stuff. And you can always get to that, and you can always pull down the current master and develop versions. Did that work? Were people able to get the folder with all the stuff in it? Like I said, that's it. I didn't bring cards today because I'm as prepared as I get. Again, we work with Dime Analytics. I'm Benjamin Daniels, and happy to do stuff. Happy to give a presentation like this to your team for a technical basis. Happy to do a more manager-oriented presentation as well for non-technical staff.